The most common fears people have about their lives are usually related to their future. How then do we want to walk towards the future God has for us? This is the heart of our podcast today.
Ronnie Floyd is a leader of leaders with a vision to change the world. The Four Leaders podcast with Ronnie Floyd is committed to investing, inspiring, and influencing your life and leadership today. With a legacy of investing in thousands and thousands of leaders throughout the years who've led in multiple arenas of leadership. Now is the time, and today is the day for Ronnie Floyd to invest, inspire, and influence you in a serious and responsible way. So spread the news and share the Four Leaders podcast with others around the world. Now, here's your host, Ronnie Floyd.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 58th podcast today. After not releasing a podcast in the month of July, I'm ready to talk to you today. I'm your host, Ronnie Floyd, and I want to thank you for joining us today. Can I ask you to do something today? Would you please subscribe to our podcast and encourage others to do the same? Would you follow us on social media at Ronnie Floyd, which is on X and Instagram, as well as you can follow us on YouTube. I really do hope that you will join us and do everything you can to help us get what we are saying and talking about into the lives of your friends and your family and your colleagues. By the way, I want to tell you about something that is just released, a podcast that I interviewed on with two men, Jimmy Dykes and Chris Burks. Now, Jimmy Dykes and Chris Burks, they have a podcast called Coach 'em Up with Jimmy Dykes and Chris Burks. Jimmy Dykes is one of the leading voices in college basketball that is broadcasting with ESPN, and Chris Burks is one of the leading voices in broadcasting college baseball. Now, both of these men work for ESPN and are also followers of Jesus Christ. They just released a podcast interview with me just a couple of days ago that I believe you will enjoy. Again, one more time, Coach 'em Up with Jimmy Dykes and Chris Burks. I believe it will inspire you if you will listen to them on a weekly basis, but also even the one that I just interviewed with them on this past week. Now, last week, I was in Dallas, Texas, preaching the Sunday morning worship services for the First Baptist Church in Dallas, and then focusing on revival for some of their people by preaching on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday evenings. I am so grateful to my pastor, friend, and incredible broadcaster himself, as well as obviously an author, and that is Pastor Robert Jeffress of the First Baptist Church in Dallas. What a delightful and meaningful time I had with their church family, and thank all of you, the family of First Baptist Church in Dallas. Well, today, right now, I am in Athens, Greece for a significant conference attended by almost 500 spiritual leaders from more than 88 countries worldwide. From evangelical ministries from all across the world, we are talking about the future of the church and its role in the world, but mainly about the Great Commission of Jesus Christ, asking this question: what is the Spirit of God saying to the church today? What is the church all about? Well, not only talking about today's church, but the future church. It will be an exciting time together, and we are right now on day 2 in this conference in Athens, Greece. Now, listen, this 3-day conference, in my role here, is that they have asked me to come, and it is my specific role to lead us in a prayer experience each session. In other words, I'm going to be speaking in all 7 sessions, speaking about and mobilizing people and really leading them in a prayer experience. So we're going to have a time of response in the middle of each one of these sessions, whereby something has been talked about and discussed in those sessions regarding these matters, and then we will pray through it. And it's my role to try to lead us and to hear what God is saying and move everyone forward to embracing and calling upon the God of heaven in this time. I'm thankful for Dr. James Davis, who is the president of the Global Church Network, which has thousands upon thousands upon thousands of churches from across the world. And James is leading this and hosting this conference. And so I hope you'll pray for us even while we are in the midst of that conference, even right now. Now, I want to get to the subject today because to me, it is a very, very important subject to talk about. And I thought because it's August and now we are entering back into a major run in our lives toward the Christmas holidays, I want to urge us to talk about this subject. I want to talk to you about walking toward the future God has for you. Walking toward the future God has for you. When I was a younger leader and much younger in life than I am today, life didn't seem so complicated. So I believed I pretty well knew all the answers about the future God has in store or had in store for me, and at times even for others. And as you know, as a pastor and a spiritual leader, I was often asked this question: what do you think God may want me to do? Now, they came and asked me that after they had told me the situations in their lives or the opportunities in their life, and people genuinely want to know what God may want them to do in a situation in life. Well, so based upon the information that they had shared with me beforehand, I would quickly give my personal opinion about what may be what the Lord may want them to do. Now listen, I wasn't doing that because I thought I knew everything. In fact, I did it more because of my own innocence and immaturity, and because I never wanted to be that person, that kind of person who was always, challenging and always thinking they knew everything. But now on this side of life, on this side of my life in my 60s, knowing what God has for our future, I have found is often mysterious. In other words, it's more of a journey through life than just some destination we reach. If we're not careful, we will instill fear in one another and, quite honestly, even fear within ourselves when we do not know certain matters about the future. We imagine at times that there is some out there that God may have for us, and usually that is supposed to be a job or an opportunity of some kind. Well, whether we are in healthcare, finance, law, education, corporate America, politics, sports, media, ministry, or even in retirement, or if you're a stay-at-home mom or even a high school student or a university student, I believe the key to what I'm talking about today is this: walking towards the future God has for you. two verses that come up almost every time this subject is ever discussed are two verses that every believer, regardless of who you are and what you do and how old you are, you need to memorize these verses. It's Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Last week, when I was thinking through how and what that first podcast needed to be, after talking with a friend for many years, even since seminary days, and listening to him, I heard one thing he said, and it was funny, and he was saying it while he was laughing, but he meant every bit of it. He said, "Man, I've been wearing out Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, standing on it again and again for all these years." That was an interesting comment, and it made me wonder and made me even address it here with you this week. What did he mean? He meant that Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 is an eternal, everlasting, and a great Bible truth God has used in his life repeatedly. Furthermore, even now, in his own life, he is navigating through a very tough decision about his future, standing again upon the truth of God's everlasting words in 3 of Proverbs in 5, the verses 5 and 6 in Proverbs chapter 3. Now, what I find very interesting is that he did it with great faith. And he did it with a real measure of peace. And he said it, yes, while laughing, but he wasn't laughing at the Lord. He was laughing at himself about how much he's worn out Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 his entire life. Well, we really never wear out what is everlasting, but I'll tell you what we do. We stand on it. And that's what he was doing and is doing even now. You see, regardless of who we are, what we have, our age, or even our stage in life, I think it would be healthy if we stop imagining that there is some magical formula that guarantees you will find or discover God's will for your future. We need to readjust what this journey is really all about. You see, if we're not careful, we're going to think that the journey is all about us, and it's not. It is about God, and God taking us on a journey that is shaping our lives into his likeness. And he does that as he shepherds us towards the future he has for us. And because he is shepherding us in that, once we're there, whatever that there may be, God has us ready to receive it, and God has us ready to go and to do it. Now, are there principles that we can find and we can do and follow which may lead us to discover the Lord's will? Well, of course, absolutely. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 demonstrate some of these that the Lord may want to use to help us to walk with him daily toward these matters. Now, discovering God's will for our future happens when we walk with God every day. When we start our day with God, which is really important, and we walk with him throughout the day, which is really important. And even when we walk with him through the nighttime, which, yes, is really important, he remains faithful. And listen, he will reveal his plans for us. These plans may or they may not include a specific definition or, destination with a timeline. But in God's perfect timing, I promise you, the Lord will, in his time, reveal the future he has for you as you walk with him every day. And that future, it may look completely different from what you imagined, or it may turn out just as you had envisioned. Either way, I promise you, you win. I want you to know today that I am standing with my friend on Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 continually for my life, and I want to assure you to understand what it says. Trust in the Lord more than yourself. Keep your mind on the Lord more than other stuff and people, and you will receive what the Lord may bring into your life daily. You see, if you do this enough days consecutively, you will be walking towards the future God has for you. So always yearn and desire to follow God to his future for you. I can assure you, unashamedly, I yearn and passionately desire what God has planned for my future. I do wish many days it looked different from the way they sometimes do, but it is always interesting, and it is a mystery what I have seen God unveil in my path as he brings things day by day and night by night in my life. Either way, it's all about faith and believing God for the future he has for you. I want to give you a warning, and I want you to know I only know these things because I promise you I have competed with them at times, and there have been days in my life more years ago than today when I literally became very challenged by these things. But God has revealed for years, these are enemies of what I'm talking to you about today. They are enemies that stand in our way to walking towards the future God has for us. You say, Ronnie, what are you talking about? I'm talking about something like discontentedness and discouragement. You see, discontentedness and discouragement are enemies of your believing God for the future God has for you. When you become discontent, then all of a sudden you don't see things the way you need to see them. And it will discourage you greatly in due time. And then, when you compare yourself to others, oh wow, that can lead to real discontent and real discouragement. Additionally, if you're not careful, it can cause criticism and jealousy, which are just two more enemies of trusting God for the future he has planned for you. So do not give in to comparison and jealousy. Do not give in to criticism and jealousy, and always refuse becoming discontent and discouraged. Focus on what you can do. Focus on what is before you. Follow God. Walk with God to your future daily. Pray and practice what is found in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Now, friends, you will always find God's will along the path called faith and trust. And I've had to tell myself this again and again, not in recent days only, but in days going back a few decades. But also, you understand this, that you will always find God's will sooner or later along the path called faith and trust. But beware, you will never discover God's will through comparison, criticism, jealousy, discontent, or discouragement. So my challenge to you this week is this: wear out standing on Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, and determine daily, I will walk with the Lord towards the future He has for me. And I want you to know, and to never forget it this week, God is faithful, God is able, and God is always on time.
Thanks for tuning in. For more information on Ronnie Floyd, go to 4leaders.com. We'll see you next time.